What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL video. This is a special video. This is the 2019 NFL mock draft. The draft kicks off on Thursday night. The Arizona Cardinals have the first selection in the first round. It could change their entire franchise. I will go through the entire first round, from the first pick to the 32nd pick with the New England Patriots, and go through my thoughts, my analysis, and basically what I've gathered throughout the process of the draft, what I've been hearing through the sources of the NFL, and put everything together in my best guess on who your team will select and how the draft on Thursday will go down. This is my 2019 NFL mock draft. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment below on your team selection. What do you think of my pick for your team? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know in the comments. Let's get right into my mock draft for 2019, starting off with the obvious, in my opinion. It's Kyler Murray being selected first overall to the Arizona Cardinals. To me, it just has to happen. The Cardinals, yes, they did pick Josh Rosen last season, but it's a new regime in terms of a coaching staff. Cliff Kingsbury was brought in there to put in his offense, and he has said many times if he had the first selection, he would pick Kyler Murray because that is his guy, and that is the guy that best fits that offense. And that's what I truly believe. Kyler Murray is a special talent. You have to go after a special quarterback who can change your entire franchise. And I just don't think Josh Rosen is that guy, and I don't think they believe Josh Rosen is that guy. Now, will Josh Rosen be traded? A little bit on that as we get towards the end of this video, but Kyler Murray, he's special inside the pocket, he's special outside the pocket. Yes, he is small, but he has that running ability. He has that ability to extend plays. He has a great arm. He has great touch on the football, and he's the best runner I've seen since Michael Vick. So this is a no-brainer pick for me for the Arizona Cardinals at number 1. At number 2, the San Francisco 49ers, they have to address their defense even more than they already have in free agency by adding Quan Alexander, by adding D Ford. I think they add to that defensive line again. I think they add to that edge position once again with Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is a can't-miss prospect. He is ready for the NFL, and I think he's ready to destroy the NFL from day one. The only real concern with him is a little bit of injuries, but outside of that, this is the position that the 49ers really need, and they've been needing for a long time. Not only did they have D Ford, now they add Nick Bosa to the other side, and you have one of the best tandems pass rushing in the NFL right away in the 2019 season. You have DeForest Buckner in the middle, Armstead in the middle. You can move Solomon Thomas into the defensive tackle position, possibly as a pass rusher on third down. But you have a lot of versatility now on one of the most important groups on an NFL team, which is the defensive line. The 49ers have all that versatility, adding Nick Bosa here, a can't-miss prospect, a great pass rusher, and a guy that could instantly put up 10 sacks. At number 3, this is kind of a shocker based on a lot of other mock drafts, but there's been a lot of buzz that Ed Oliver is going to go in the top 5. And I do believe that Ed Oliver probably will go in the top 5. I think he's going to go number 3 to the New York Jets. Now, the reason why I don't see the New York Jets picking the player that a lot of people think is going to be selected is Josh Allen. Josh Allen is an edge player who makes sense for the Jets because they wanted to get Anthony Barr, and Josh Allen is basically, in my opinion, a better version of Anthony Barr. He can pass rush, but he can also cover very well, and he can pass rush to a level that's a lot better than Anthony Barr. Now, with Ed Oliver, Greg Williams kind of has a history with this type of interior defensive force. We know that the Jets' goal is to beat the Patriots, and when you want to beat the Patriots, you don't want edge rushers. You want interior disruptors. You want interior guys that can get after Tom Brady. And even though Tom Brady won't be along much longer, the Jets need to win as soon as they can. They have Sam Darnold on this rookie contract. They've been building this team right now with Le'Veon Bell and all the pieces they've added. And I think Ed Oliver would be a very nice pick for them. Now, I would also think that Josh Allen would be a nice pick. But Ed Oliver, I think he fits the Williams scheme that they want to run. on defense. That's the buzz that he's going in the top 5, and the team that makes the most sense to me is the New York Jets at number 3 with the history with Greg Williams. At number 4, the Raiders, I think, are going to select the best player on the board, and the best player on the board to me is Quinnen Williams. He's a big force inside in the defensive line. I know Chris Sims said that he is the best defensive lineman that he's seen since watching tape being outside of the NFL, and even better than Aaron Donald. So with Williams, I don't necessarily think that Williams is going to be Aaron Donald, but Quinnen Williams could be one of the best defensive players in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. Williams is an absolute monster in both the run game and the passing game. He has absolutely no flaw whatsoever. And with the Raiders, yes, they have some young players at the defensive tackle position. I really like Hurst inside for their defense, but I think when you're talking about a player such as the caliber of Quinnen Williams, he's so much better than, in my opinion, the next player on the board. They could potentially go with a guy like Josh Allen here, but it would make more sense to go with a player like Quinnen Williams who can come in and just eat up the run, get after the quarterback. And as I said with Ed Oliver, the new thing in the NFL is getting a pass rush from the interior, and it's the most effective way to affect quarterbacks and affect the passing game. So Quinnen Williams can do both. He can stop the run, he can stop the pass. And I think he's just a player that can transform your entire defense. And that's why I'm going with Quinnen Williams going to the Raiders here instead of maybe a edge rusher who the Raiders have been looking for since trading Khalil Mack. At number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trading their pick to the Washington Redskins. Yes, I didn't mention that there will be trades, but there will be trades in this mock draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade their 5th overall pick. I just think it makes the most sense. They could go with a linebacker in Devin White here, which I've heard a lot. They could go possibly somewhere else, I don't know, defensively. But to me, the Bucs' biggest needs are edge, safety, corner, and offensive line. And to me, it doesn't make sense to hold on to this number 5 pick. Instead, they trade back, they get some extra picks from the Washington Redskins, and the Washington Redskins are going to jump over the New York Giants to pick the quarterback of their future, which is Dwayne Haskins of Ohio State. Now, why Dwayne Haskins? There hasn't been a ton of buzz around Dwayne Haskins going to Washington. Well, Peter King makes a great point in his analysis on why the Redskins would pick Dwayne Haskins. He says that Snyder's son, the owner of the Redskins, Snyder, his son went to the same high school as Dwayne Haskins in Maryland. So picking Haskins could give Snyder, that local guy, that sort of face of the franchise who obviously Washington would love, the Redskins fans would love, but also Snyder would love. And I think the biggest thing when any pick comes down to whether Washington is going to select them or not is whether Snyder is bought in on the player and the pick. I am bought in on the player. I love Dwayne Haskins. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. I think he's very intelligent, has a good arm, has the size for the position. And I think this would be a great trade up and the boldest move that the Redskins have really done since RG3. So we'll see if it works out for them. Dwayne Haskins here at number 5, in my opinion, will go to the Washington Redskins, jumping over the New York Giants just in case the Giants were going to pick a quarterback. And I think that's the brilliance of sort of what the Giants are doing right now. Even though I've been really hard on the Giants, what they've been doing brilliantly is not allowing anyone to know what the heck they're going to do. So at number 6, the Giants don't go for a quarterback. Instead, they go for the pass rusher who has fallen down the board, Josh Allen, the versatile pass rushing weapon that they can use defensively, whether that's, getting after the quarterback or that's as a coverage guy dropping back on their defense. I just think he can do a lot of different things for the Giants defense that are looking for a lot of different positions. They got rid of Vernon, so they need someone to replace him on this defense, and I think Allen fits that scheme better than even Vernon did. So overall, I would love to see a Josh Allen combo with Carter on the other side, a young player that they selected pretty high in the draft last year. I think that would be a great combination on both the edge because you have two guys that can get after the quarterback, but can also drop back and play in some coverage. So Josh Allen would be a great pick falling to the Giants at number 6. At number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was between tight end and tackle. So it was between the top tackle on the board, whoever they deem that to be, and the tight end, T.J Hockenson. Overall, I went with the tackle because I believe that the Jaguars want to play old school football at the end of the day with Tom Coughlin. And I believe that when you look at how they're molded, they need to play that style of football. I am going with Jawaann Taylor of Florida. I think Jawaann Taylor overall is probably the top tackle prospect in this draft. There's been some argument between him and Jonah Williams and some other players, but Jawaann Taylor's been the one that's been most connected to the Jacksonville Jaguars overall. And like I said, Tom Coughlin and those guys in the management office for the Jaguars are all about the old school, tenacious style of football. So I think Jawaann Taylor fits that style. Plus, the Jaguars really need tackles. They really need protection for Nick Foles. Nick Foles is not a guy that's going to be moving around and escaping pressure. So Taylor makes a lot of sense here to protect their franchise quarterback in Nick Foles. At number 8, the Detroit Lions could go a variety of ways, including trading their pick back, which I've heard that they want to do. Instead, I am going to say that they stay at this pick and that they select T.J Hockenson, tight end. I think T.J Hockenson, the reason why this makes sense, I've seen edge players go to the Lions. I've seen defensive linemen go to the Lions. I've seen offensive linemen go to the Lions, including Jawaann Taylor. But T.J Hockenson makes a lot of sense. First off, yes, they signed Jesse James, and maybe I'm wrong for assuming that they could add another tight end to this core, but Hockenson is a player that I think Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn will love, and I think they'll very much value because he is the best all-around tight end in the draft since Rob Gronkowski, in my personal opinion. He is a game-breaking receiver, kind of reminds me of Greg Olsen in the open field, that sort of style of player, but he can also block very effectively, so you can move him around. He can play inline, he can play as a slot, he can play outside. He's very athletic in the open field. He breaks tackles. I think this just adds to what the Lions want to be on offense in terms of that versatility, in terms of that scheme fit of wanting to do a lot of different things with their offense, in terms of helping that running game and the power style that they've wanted to establish with all their offensive line picks and Kerryon Johnson being a pick for them in the past. So T.J Hockenson makes a lot of sense for me for the Detroit Lions, not only from a Patriot Detroit Lion connection point of view, but also just valuing this position and understanding how a tight end can change your offense for the Detroit Lions. So I'm going to go with T.J Hockenson at number 8 with the Detroit Lions. At number 9, the Buffalo Bills. I think they need to really address their offensive line. And overall, I have them taking Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle / guard from Alabama. I think it makes a lot of sense here because not only could he play tackle, right tackle probably for them, but he could also come inside if they want to play guard. So he fits a lot of different things, whether they want him to play guard or tackle. He's a very good player. A lot of people see him as the best offensive lineman on the board and the one that's going to go the highest. Personally, I have Jawaann Taylor a little bit above him as a tackle, but Jonah Williams has that scheme versatility that Jawaann Taylor really doesn't, and I think the Bills would value this player, understanding that they added some targets on the outside for Josh Allen to get the ball to. They need to protect him as well, and Jonah Williams makes a lot of sense at number 9. At number 10, the Denver Broncos could go quarterback here. They could go Drew Lock, which has been highly connected, but you'll see Drew Lock will go somewhere later in this draft. I actually think if Drew Lock does not go to the Broncos here, he could potentially fall. Now, he could also go to the Bengals at number 11, but I see Drew Lock falling, and we'll get to that. But I have the Broncos going defense, and the reason why I have them going defense is because they did trade for Joe Flacco, so the quarterback need this high in the draft doesn't necessarily connect and make a lot of sense. The second thing is that they brought in Vic Fangio as their head coach. They understand that how they won the Super Bowl in 2015 was through defense with that Wade Phillips defense. So they are going to go Devin White, the top linebacker in the draft. And Vic Fangio has always very much valued these type of players. And I think he'll have the ear of John Elway when it comes to, okay, we need to establish our defense and I need my middle linebacker. Not only did the Bears select Roquan Smith last year as a part of Vic Fangio's defense. But Vic Fangio also has had Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. The names go on and on. So Devin White makes a lot of sense here at linebacker for the Broncos, a player that can help Chubb and Miller on the outside. His speed can track down everybody from the run game to the pass game, sideline to sideline. He's a great player, great fit, and a great leader for the middle of the Broncos defense. At number 11, 2 linebackers in a row. Now, some people have edge here for the Bengals, but I don't get that because Carlos Dunlap is there. They have Carl Lawson, who I think is a very good player, and they have Sam Hubbard, who they drafted, I think, in the middle of the draft last year. So to me, Bengals edge doesn't really make sense this high in the draft. Offensive line, while if Jonah Williams falls, that could make sense for the guard tackle versatility. They re-signed Bobby Hart, and they have Cordy Glenn at tackle, so that doesn't really make too much sense to me as well. So when I really look at it, linebacker is the most intriguing and interesting selection that they could go with, and I think it makes the most sense. It's the clearest selection here because they don't really have any linebackers outside of Preston Brown, who's a decent player, but he's slow. They need to add speed to the middle of their defense, and Devin Bush makes a lot of sense. At Michigan, he was another sideline-to-sideline player, excellent in both the run game and the pass game. I think he does get caught on blocks a little bit too much, but he instantly gives them a startable player in the middle of their defense that can be a game changer for them and add a lot of speed in the middle of their defense. As Michael Lombardi says, if the middle of your defense is slow, your defense is slow, and your defense can't be slow in the NFL today. So Devin Bush makes sense at number 11 for the Bengals. At number 12, the Green Bay Packers, they could go everywhere. They could go receiver, they could go linebacker if one of those guys falls from Bush and White, but because those guys don't fall, I had to go somewhere else. They could go tackle and replace Brian Bulaga. I actually went offensive playmaker, not receiver, but tight end. I went Noah Fant. Overall, that Matt LaFleur, being an offensive coach, it's his first year. They understand Aaron Rodgers is in need of some targets. And Matt LaFleur wants his offense to be flexible. He wants it to be versatile. And I think Noah Fant fits that very well. Now, I think Fant's getting a bad kind of rep for not being as great of a blocker as T.J Hockenson, but you're comparing T.J Hockenson and Noah Fant. That's not very fair to Fant because Fant's a very athletic guy. He has a ton of speed, and in the past, I wouldn't have loved the Packers picking a tight end this high in the draft because of the Mike McCarthy offense, but because this is a different offensive scheme, because of the different ways that they want to use this tight end position, I know they have Jimmy Graham, but I think that LaFleur is an offensive coach, and they'll want to get him his pieces to run his offense the way he wants to run it. So it makes sense at number 12 for the Packers to go after tight end Noah Fant. And, of course, the Packers could just add more and more weapons for Aaron Rodgers because they really need somebody outside of Devontae Adams to make plays. So Noah Fant here at number 12. I could see them going a majority of different directions, though. I could see them going, Dillard here. I could see them going, if Jonah Williams drops, it would make a lot of sense. I could see them going with White or Bush, but overall I went with Fant. At number 13, the Miami Dolphins are looking to establish the line of scrimmage. Whether that's the offensive line or the defensive line, that's truly where I believe they will pick. Brian Flores is a defensive coach, so keeping that in mind, I went to the defensive side of the football. The Miami Dolphins have holes everywhere on their defense and their offense, so really they could pick any position, including a quarterback. I think if Haskins somehow fell to 13, the Dolphins would probably pick Haskins, but because he didn't, I am going to go with a big defensive lineman in the middle of their defense, Christian Wilkins. I think Christian Wilkins is just that breed of defensive lineman that the Patriot system values a lot. Now, Flores in his past is a former linebacker from Boston College, so potentially if one of those linebackers fell, I could see that. But I could also see them going Rashawn Gary here for his versatility and Trey Flowers-like qualities. I could see that as well. But Christian Wilkins, I just think, is a very good player, and I think he can be powerful not only in the run game but in the passing game as well. He can do so many things well, and the Dolphins have been really searching for a player in the middle of their defense since they let go of Sue. So I think Wilkins makes a lot of sense here. He can just do a lot of different things for them. And when you look at the Patriot sort of style of history of drafts, they very much value that big defensive lineman, that Richard Seymour type, and Wilkins kind of fits that sort of mold. So I'm going to go with Christian Wilkins here at number 13 for the Dolphins. At number 14, the Atlanta Falcons. They could go edge. They could go offensive line. They could even go secondary. I'm going to go with Rashawn Gary. Now, this is not a pick that a lot of people are going with, and this is kind of, I understand that I'm outside the box here. But when I really think about what Dan Quinn wants on his defense, I understand that the Atlanta Falcons need an edge rusher. A lot of people are saying Brian Burns, and that's the first thought I kind of thought of. Rashawn Gary is not only an edge rusher or an edge player on first and second down, but he can be an interior player on third down. And I think that Dan Quinn, when you think back to his defenses in Seattle, he had this Michael Bennett type of player. And that's what Rashawn Gary is to me, where he can not only impact on the edge on first and second down and help them in the run game for Atlanta, but he can move inside on third down and really be that Michael Bennett third down pass rusher from the interior, where I think he'll be best suited in the NFL and help out that defense that way. So not only do you help your edge, but you also help your interior defensive line, which are both needs for Atlanta with one player in Rashawn Gary. At number 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because of the trade, they were at number 5. They traded with the Washington Redskins. They are now at number 15. I understand this player is dropping on boards because of his heart condition, but Montez Sweat is too good to pass up here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 15. He is an athletic freak, and I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as I stated at the pick number 5, they need an edge player. They've been searching for one, and I think Sweat has a lot of versatility in what scheme he can play in, whether that's a 4-3 traditional scheme, hand in the dirt, or that's standing up as a 3-4 type of linebacker. He can do both. He has great length and ability to get off blocks and stop the run game. He's ready in that regard. He does need to kind of tune up his pass rushing game, but I think overall this is a player I'm not worried about the health conditions. I think he's too much of a beast physically to pass up on here for the Buccaneers at 15. They get their long lost edge player at 15. At number 16, the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people are saying offensive line. I disagree. I don't think they need a tackle. I look at both of their tackles, Williams and Moton. I think both of them can play. I think both of them are good. I think Williams could switch over to left side if he needs to. I think Moton could switch over to right or left side. It doesn't really matter. So I think those are going to be their starting tackles. Now they could go inside. They could go possibly Cody Ford to play tackle or guard. Sure. But I'm going to go defensive line. I'm going to go edge because they really need an edge player to replace Julius Peppers, and they need a pass rusher. It's just period, end of story. They haven't really had one. I mean, Addison's pretty good, and Quan Short's pretty good in the inside, but Julius Peppers was kind of a rotation player. They need to replace that guy. I think Brian Burns is one of my favorite edge players in this draft. I think he's a great pass rusher. He's ready now to get after the quarterback. He does need some work in the run game, but the Panthers could work around that. And understanding that Ron Rivera is already a great defensive coach. He understands defensive football. He understands front seven players, being one in the past himself. I think he could really help out Brian Burns, and he could see the potential in him. He's an absolute athletic freak. He is a great guy with his hands to get around the edge. He has great natural bend to get and kind of go low and Von Miller style and get after the quarterback. So overall, I see Brian Burns as the guy for the Carolina Panthers. I thought about Montez Sweat. I think that makes sense as well. I think Farrell makes sense as well, but I think it's between one of these three guys, and overall I went with Burns because he's the best pure pass rusher. At number 17, the New York Giants. Oh, the New York Giants. They could go defense once again here, but I think they're going to go quarterback, and I think I'm buying in. I'm buying in Daniel Jones. I don't like Daniel Jones. I don't think he's a first-round quarterback. I don't think he's a first-round player. But overall, Daniel Jones is the pick here for the New York Giants. I have to go with it because I think that's what they're trying to do, and I think that's what they're trying to set up. So Daniel Jones at number 17 to the New York Giants. I will say, he's a smart player. He seems to be impressing everybody in the meetings and recognizing offenses and that sort of thing. I'm still very skeptical on him in terms of his ability to throw down the field and that sort of thing, but If that's their guy, that's their guy. And at number 17, they can get their guy. I don't think he's going to go any higher than the middle of the first round. So Daniel Jones here at number 17. At number 18, the Minnesota Vikings, they need to address their offensive line 100%. Whether that's the interior or the tackle position, they need to do it. And to me, you get a guy that can play guard or tackle, preferably right tackle. For them, Cody Ford, and Matt Miller of Bleacher Report has connected this pretty heavily here. He's been all over this, and I think Ford makes a lot of sense for the Vikings. They need to protect Kirk Cousins, and they need to help him out, and that is the position of need over every other position. The Vikings are a very talented team, and when you look at their offensive line doesn't stack up to the rest of their team and the rest of their talent. So they need to add an offensive lineman, and whoever they feel is the best at this position, they're going to go with. And to me, Cody Ford is a very powerful player and a player that I think could start from day one on either position. So I'm going to go Cody Ford at number 18 for the Minnesota Vikings. At number 19, this is an outside the box pick. A lot of people for the Titans are selecting Noah Fant. They're selecting receivers. They're selecting edge players. I understand the edge player, and I could have went with Furl here, but in my opinion, I think they are going to go big man. I think they're going to go defensive line. I think they're going to go Dexter Lawrence. Now, to me, when I really look at it, you have Cam Wake, you have Harold Landry, and I understand Cam Wake is not an every down player, but he can still play a little bit. I think they're going to address the edge in the second or the third round. But Mike Vrabel, again, a guy that's from the Patriot mold, understanding that whole thing, they love their big guys. And I really look at their nose tackle position. They have Casey, they have Jones, but I think they need a big nose tackle. I think they need a big space eater, and Dexter Lawrence is a space eater, but he's also a little bit more than that. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's going to go within the 10 to 20 range. I think he's that good, and I think he is a player that can definitely not only help the run game, but just open up space for Casey, open up space for the edge players, and play on all three downs if he needs to. So I'm going to go Lawrence here at number 19. I think the Titans will go defense front seven, but I'm going to go defensive line. At number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is a no-brainer pick. They need to go corner. If a linebacker is not there, they need to go corner, and they could go with any corner because the Steelers are very random with how they select their corners. Nobody saw that Burns pick coming. I am going to go Greedy Williams because I think he's the best corner in the draft by quite a long margin, actually. I think he's pretty much the best guy that they can select here. He has the size, he has the speed combination, and not many players with size and speed like that are not good. So I'm going to go with that. Plus his tape shows out. He shut down DK Metcalf in one game. I just think he's the best corner, and I think the Steelers need corners, and this is the best pick for them. At number 21, I have a trade. Now, the Seattle Seahawks have pick number 21, but they don't have many picks in this draft. I believe they only have 4. So it makes sense for them to trade back. Now, they're going to trade back with the Green Bay Packers. Yes, the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have another first-round pick. They have another first-round pick at pick number 30, which was the New Orleans Saints pick. The Packers will trade up, not for a tackle, not for a linebacker, but for DK Metcalf, wide receiver. Yes, I know Packers fans, they believe that they have the answer at receiver at the second receiver spot, whether that's Valdez, Scantling, but they don't. Let's be honest, guys, they don't. They need a game-breaking receiver, and DK Metcalf is that guy. He's a freak of a player. I think he will be the first receiver to go off the board. And LaFleur, he needs receivers. Understanding that he's from the McVay, Kyle Shanahan tree, they need their receivers, especially the Sean McVay style of offense that he came from. They need 3 receivers. They need receivers that they can go to. So now you add Fant, you add Metcalf, you have Adams, you have Jones, you have all the other guys that you can go to, Jimmy Graham, Valdez Scantling, whoever it may be. The Packers are loaded now with offensive weapons for Aaron Rodgers, and this is going to make Aaron Rodgers very happy. I understand the need for offensive line, but I think Rodgers makes things happen on his own with the offensive line, and I think they can piece together an offensive line that's good enough. And I don't really see like the need right now for the tackle position. I think it's more interior line, and they could address that in the second or third round. I think right now you need to get Aaron Rodgers weapons. And DK Metcalf, he's a deep receiver. He stretches out a defense, so that's going to help Devontae Adams. That's going to help all the other players. That's going to help the run game. So I think DK Metcalf, with the ability that Rodgers has to throw deep, fits perfectly with the Green Bay Packers. And the reason why they trade up is to go ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, who would have potentially picked DK Metcalf here as a target for Lamar Jackson. At number 22, the Baltimore Ravens, because DK Metcalf went one spot ahead of them, they're not going to go receiver. So, in my opinion, they're going to address their edge position, which they lost both Terrell Suggs and Za'Darius Smith. Clelin Ferrell of Clemson makes a lot of sense here. I think he can do both, whether that's stand up or play with his hand in the dirt. This is a crucial position for the Baltimore Ravens. This has always been a crucial position for their style of defense, and they need to quickly replace that talent. So Ferrell makes a lot of sense here. Maybe he's not a three-down player, but the Ravens always find a way to find a lot of different players that they can add to this spot. So Ferrell is the pick here for the Baltimore Ravens, a player that can play on the edge, can also play with his hand in the dirt if they want to, like in a 4-3 style of defense. He's a pass rusher. He has great jump off the ball to get after the quarterback, and that's exactly what the Baltimore Ravens need. I know a lot of people think they're going to go offense. I don't know. I think they need to address that edge position, a position that's so crucial to their success. At number 23, the Houston Texans need to address their offensive line. They just need to. Dillard, I think, is the pick for the Houston Texans. He is one of the best, if not the best, pure pass blocking tackle in this draft. He has a little bit of issues in terms of his size and just his pure power, but overall, I think him and his athleticism, his ability to protect the quarterback will suit what the Texans need in terms of a guy that can protect the blind side for Deshaun Watson. At number 24, the Oakland Raiders. Now, they've already had one pick. They went Quinnen Williams early in this draft. I think they're going to go offense. A lot of times, John Gruden can't really contain himself when it comes to offensive players and offensive playmakers. Josh Jacobs, running back. He's the best running back in this draft. I think he compares to like a Frank Gore. Maybe not quite as good. Obviously, Frank Gore is an all-time great, but he runs with a similar style. I think the Raiders do need a running back pretty badly, and I think they get their guy here in Josh Jacobs, the best overall running back in this draft at number 24. Picking him here at 24 instead of 27 because the Eagles and the Colts are two teams that also have shown interest in Jacobs. At number 25, the Philadelphia Eagles. This is, I don't know. They could go anywhere, okay? They could go tackle. They could go safety. They could go corner. Even though I don't think they really need a safety, I've heard that a lot. They could go corner. I think they could use a linebacker, but there's not really one here to pick. I'm going to go wide receiver. Yes, they don't really need one at this point, but there have been a lot of smoke and a lot of fire around Marquise Brown going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Peter King has basically pretty much taken his stab at this, and Marquise Brown, I think it makes sense when you think about Nelson Agholor potentially being traded. His contract is pretty big. They could trade him potentially at this draft for another draft pick and replace him with Marquise Brown, who's more of a slot receiver. And he also compares a little bit to Deshaun Jackson, who they have on their team now, but is getting older, and you never know when he's going to retire or fall off. So Marquise Brown could potentially be a replacement for Nelson Agholor, or he could be a replacement for Deshaun Jackson. Either way, the Eagles add a dynamic receiver here, a downfield threat, a speedy guy, quick, good slot receiver who could help out their offense. And either way, if he plays or he's just a depth player, it's similar to the tight end pick they had last year. So we'll see what they do here. It could be a lot of different positions, but I think with all the smoke surrounding Marquise Brown to the Eagles, I'm going to take a stab at it. At number 26, the Colts, they could go receiver as well. They could go corner, I think. Some people have them going safety, but that doesn't really make sense. I think they're going to go defensive line. Jerry Tillery of Notre Dame makes sense to me because he's a athletic interior disrupting player that the Colts and Ballard really seems to like. Now, the Colts, in terms of their interior, they have Autry, they have Hunt, they have Ridgeway, they have Lewis. Lewis plays some end, but those three other players play mostly defensive tackle, interior defensive line. Tillery, I think, would instantly be maybe the best player in that group. I think Hunt is pretty good and underrated, but he's sort of more of a pass rushing guy. Tillery can play both. He's a big guy, but also quick and slippery enough to play as a pass rusher as well. So I think it fits two needs. It fits the interior defensive line need that I think, just thinking about, also Frank Reich, who's the coach, he understands what the Eagles did so well in terms of adding a bunch of talent to their defensive line. I think the Colts are not done doing that, and Tillery makes a lot of sense from Notre Dame. At number 27, the Oakland Raiders have another pick here, and I think it's finally time for them to address the corner position, which they need to. DeAndre Baker, he gave up 0 touchdowns, I think, his last season of college. He's a solid corner, and I think he can play man-to-man very well. I think he could be a top 2 corner on your team. I think they have their other corner on the opposite side with Connolly. I think they need to find another one in Baker. So it makes sense there. They add to their secondary. So now they added a defensive lineman. They added to their offense with a running back, and they added a corner. So those are 3 of their biggest needs. They could also address potentially an edge rusher at this spot, but I don't really see one that's worth the value. And I think getting a defensive lineman like Williams and getting a corner like Baker is making huge strides with your defense. At number 28, the LA Chargers. To me, they need to address rather defensive line in the interior to stop the run or the tackle position. Right tackle to be specific. I'm going Caleb McGarry, tackle. I think this just makes too much sense because they want to help protect Phillip Rivers. He's only getting older, and they understand that they want to win now. So really trading this pick for like Josh Rosen doesn't make sense to me. Picking a corner, I don't understand that at all. Some people are putting that as mock drafts. If they do, I'll be the first to applaud, but they have great corners. I don't get that. Safety, I think it's defensive line or offensive line and tackle. That was their biggest weakness last year in Tevi at right tackle. So I think they're going to go McGarry here, and he could instantly be a starter for them at right tackle. At number 29, the Kansas City Chiefs, let's make this mock draft interesting, will trade their pick for Frank Clark of the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, Frank Clark of the Seattle Seahawks will be the new edge rusher of the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been searching for one. Their name is around this pick. So I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs will make this pick. Now, I know that the Chiefs and Chiefs fans are a little bit aware of the fact that Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, and now Frank Clark, there's a lot of kind of baggage with that. But Frank Clark, I think he's proven to be a different person in that whole situation, that regard. I think the Chiefs will look at this and just say that we need to win a Super Bowl now, and Frank Clark gives us the chance to do that. I think he is better than D Ford, so you're getting an upgrade there, and you're paying a player that's more worthy of the price tag. At number 29, instead of picking a player that potentially they could go center here, they could go edge rusher, they could go corner, I'm going to go Frank Clark to the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's make this interesting. So the Seattle Seahawks have pick number 29. And in response from Frank Clark leaving, they will pick a defensive lineman. Not edge rusher quite yet. They have pick number 29 and 30 because remember, I had them trading with the Green Bay Packers. So back-to-back picks, they will address their defensive line and their edge position. Jeffrey Simmons, I think, is going to be one of their picks. Yes, he's injured, but I think he's too good to pass up. He could be the best player in this draft. I know Michael Lombardi thinks he is that. So I think he could potentially go earlier than this. He could potentially slide later than this, but I think the Seattle Seahawks, they've taken chances in the past on players like this and in this nature. I think Jeffrey Simmons, when you look back at this pick in 5 years, you could say this is the best player in the draft. So the Seahawks will go with this pick to respond from Frank Clark being traded. And then at number 30, I think they need to go edge rusher, and Jalen Ferguson, to me, is the best one on the board, so I'm going to go Jalen Ferguson. They could go safety here. They could go corner here as well, but Jalen Ferguson addressing the need that Frank Clark leaves them. Simmons and Ferguson adding to their defensive line, I think makes sense, plus they get some other picks back from the Green Bay Packers in the second and third round for that trade with DK Metcalf. At pick number 31, another huge, shocking trade. We're going to get some madness at the end of this first round here. Drew Lock will not go to the LA Rams. The LA Rams will trade their pick, number 31, to the Denver Broncos and John Elway, and the Denver Broncos will select quarterback Drew Lock. And Drew Lock will be the future of their franchise. Yes, I said they won't pick it that high, but they have a chance. Drew Lock's falling down this board. They get the extra year by trading for the pick in the first round, getting him in the first round, and boom, Drew Lock, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. I think this would be brilliant to get Drew Lock at the end of the first round, especially after Daniel Jones goes in the middle of the first round. But that's my opinion. I think Drew Lock would be an excellent pick for the Broncos, and I think he could instantly be better than Joe Flacco this year. Maybe. I don't know. But I think he's just too much in the Elway mold for him to pass up. So I think the Broncos get Drew Lock as he falls to the end of the first round. And at pick number 32, the New England Patriots need to pick a receiver or a tight end. I know people are saying defensive line or edge rusher, but I don't see that player really being here at this point. I think they've all been selected. So I think they need to, there's smoke everywhere. They wanted Adam Humphries. They wanted Jared Cook. They wanted this name, that name. They wanted Golden Tate, that name, this name, that name. They're going to pick a receiver. They're going to pick Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell, I think, has immense potential. Now, he didn't really show that he could do like all the route running and craftiness that the Patriots receivers really need to do, but that's because he really wasn't asked to do that. He is an absolute burner. He is the fastest receiver in this draft, I believe. He kind of reminds me of what the Patriots wanted in Brandon Cooks. And I think that's what they get here, is like a Cordell Patterson / Percy Harvin. By the way, two players the Patriots wanted to select in both their respective drafts. He's been compared to both of these players. I think Paris Campbell has the ability to be like this sleeper Odell Beckham of this draft. So to me, I think Paris Campbell is a game-breaking player who can take the football at any point on the field and score a touchdown. He is great on the short area of the field to take the football and go after the catch, which the Patriots need and they like in their scheme. He can also stretch a defense because of his speed and go deep. So I think Paris Campbell would be an excellent pick here for the Patriots at number 32. That sort of Sony Michel pick from last year where it was like, wow, why didn't we see this coming? Paris Campbell to the Patriots at number 32. All right, so that is my mock draft for the first round of the 2019 NFL Draft. I hope you guys enjoyed this mock draft. If you did, Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe to The Bottom Line View if you haven't already. It's Mitch of The Bottom Line View. Thanks, guys, for watching. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of your team's selections and any other selections in this draft. Enjoy the draft. Peace.